This meeting is being recorded.
Got it.
Good evening. On behalf of Conflict and Resilience Research Institute Canada, I extend a warm welcome to all participants joining us for the second installment of our webinar series, Sustainable Peace in Myanmar, Ending a Decade-Long Armed Conflict. It is generously funded by Global Affairs Canada. This series is organized by our institution, which is committed to advancing conflict resolution and resilience building initiatives worldwide. Before I proceed, I would like to acknowledge that Conflict and Resilience Research Institute Canada is located on original lands of Anishinaabe, Inikniu, Anisnew, Dakota, and Dene peoples, and on the national homeland of the Red River Métis. This recognition underscores our commitment to honoring indigenous communities and their enduring connection to the land. Our gathering today, the audience, occurs against the backdrop of recent tragic event in Myanmar. On March 28, a devastating 7.7 magnitude earthquake struck central Myanmar, resulting in the loss of over 3,500 lives and leaving more than 17 million individuals in urgent need of humanitarian assistance. The earthquake inflicted extensive damage across 6 regions, decimating infrastructure and exacerbating the already dire humanitarian situation in the country. Compounding this tragedy, reports have emerged accusing Myanmar's military junta of obstructing the delivery of vital aid to affected regions. Despite declaring a 20-day ceasefire to facilitate relief efforts, the military has been accused of continuing airstrikes in conflict zones, further hindering humanitarian operations. The United Nations has expressed deep concern over these actions, emphasizing the urgent need for unimpeded access to aid for those in desperate need. In the realm of regional diplomacy, the Bay of Bengal Initiative for Multi-Sectoral Technical and Economic Cooperation, in short BIMSTEC, has recently taken steps toward addressing the protracted Rohingya refugee crisis, which has been the result of Myanmar's ethno-religious armed conflict. Myanmar has confirmed that 180,000 Rohingya refugees are eligible for repatriation, a development that, while modest, represents a potential step forward in resolving this outstanding humanitarian issue. However, significant challenges remain, and it is imperative for BIMSTEC member states to actively engage in facilitating a comprehensive and sustainable solution that ensures the safety, dignity, and rights of the Rohingya community, as well as other displaced ethnic communities in Myanmar. The audience, today's webinar focuses on envisioning a peace treaty for Myanmar, negotiated with the assistance of Smartsettle, an innovative e-negotiation system designed to facilitate complex multi-party negotiation. We are honored to have with us Dr. Ernest Thiessen, the founder and president of ICANN Systems Incorporated, the developer of Smartsettle. Dr. Thiessen holds a PhD in civil engineering from Cornell University, where he specialized in water resource systems planning and analysis. Under his leadership, Smartsettle has emerged as a pioneering platform in the field of online dispute resolution, offering tools that promote fair and efficient outcome in complex negotiation. Without further ado, let me welcome our today's presenter. And also, today we have with us a few of our esteemed guests, and we have with us our founder and advisor, David Gerald Newman, Mr. Greg Hansen from Thailand, and John German from USA. So we have all these distinguished guests with us, and we are going to listen to Dr. Ernest Thiessen's presentation and the use of Smartsettle. So let's welcome Dr. Thiessen to the presentation. Floor is yours, sir. You can go ahead.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Ahmed, and for that kind introduction. It is my privilege to be here today. And I should mention that we've been working on a concept simulation, we call it. We have in mind to present the Smartsettle collaboration system for possible application to a mini Marshall Plan in the Myanmar conflict region. You know, they've been having conflict going on there for more than half a century, and so if we can make a small difference, that would be good. So today, in the last few weeks, our team has been working together and trying to create an example of that negotiation that we have in mind. It will be a simulation, and we have created what we call a concept simulation, and it's my intention to show that to you here today. And for those of you that are with us here in the audience, we could even make this interactive. We might make a few changes along the way as we go through this simulation, but I have been interacting with a larger team, and we have already made some changes. I should emphasize that you might see certain things in the simulation as we show it, and we are not intending to show a solution, but only a process to be considered by the stakeholders in Myanmar. So without further ado, I'm going to share my screen. I have a few slides and a PowerPoint, and then I'm going to switch to the Smartsettle Infinity interface. So let's see if this works here. So we're envisioning a Myanmar peace treaty negotiated with Smartsettle. And as I mentioned, we're doing this in collaboration with the Conflict and Resilience Research Institute Canada, and it's a very, a great privilege to be working together with them. Waging peace is part of our motto. We've been waging war there too long. Let's start waging peace. And our vision is conflict resolution in a more peaceful, collaborative, and intelligent way. Collaboration is the key. And so if we can encourage parties to be collaborative, then we can get to a peaceful solution more quickly. So here are 6 stakeholder groups that we've identified. There are many more stakeholder groups, and we've identified the 6 that are most relevant to this particular process. And in real life, and as we get more sophisticated with this simulation, this process, we will add other stakeholders to this list here. But for now, we've simplified it to these 6 groups. Our objective in the first phase is to create what we call a single negotiating framework. The single negotiating framework is like the final agreement, except there are blanks for the unresolved issues. And what the stakeholders will focus on in the beginning is to search for common ground and document that common ground. And when they come to something they don't agree to, set it aside. That will be for negotiating later. So this schematic illustrates the creation of that single negotiating framework. And we have the 6 stakeholder groups working together. They're assisted by wise mediators plus AI. And once they get that single negotiating framework in place, then they will communicate through the Smartsettle Infinity neutral site. And it will be an iterative process. They may go back to revise that single negotiating framework. And eventually, the process is supposed to lead them to sustainable peace. And so that's our goal. Among us, we've asked, what are the possible peace treaty categories that the stakeholders would want to have in their peace treaty. And we've identified these 11 categories. And I won't spend a long time talking about these 11, but under each one of these will be a number of options for the parties to consider. So the Smartsettle process begins with the modeling phase, where we define the issues and the negotiating ranges, and we build that single negotiating framework together. And then we moved to Smartsettle Infinity, where we model that framework within the Infinity interface. And we also model the preferences of the parties. They do that separately. So now we're going to switch to the simulation. You should be seeing the shared information screen. I apologize for the small font here, but we're not going to spend too much time on this particular interface. In the left panel here, we have the parties. These are the stakeholders in the negotiation, and in the next pane on the right side are all of the issues, the same 11 that I just finished. I told you about. Actually, there's a 12 here, including a cost issue. And in the simulation, all of the stakeholders except the Tatmadaw military are going to be played by the Infinity robot agent. So we're going to open the Tatmadaw party now. And in real life, this would be confidential. And only the Tatmadaw would be seeing this particular interface. And each of the other parties have an interface that looks like this. So here are all of those 11, actually a dozen issues listed in the same order that I showed you previously. And what the Tatmadaw prefers are their outcomes on these issues are the ones on the right-hand side, and their least preferred options are the ones on the left-hand side. So for example, if I open up ceasefire agreement here and security guarantees, then I come up with a satisfaction graph, and there are a number of different possible outcomes for this particular issue. And these bars represent the preferences of the Tatmadaw. Their most preferred option are the one that is safe zones and humanitarian. The second most preferred option is legal security agreements. Least preferred here is what we call the nationwide ceasefire. Of course, that's by itself without some of these other things. And you'd have to go back and read the description for each one of these to understand it in more fully. So if any of you have looked at some of the materials that have been circulated earlier and want to look at any one of these in particular, I'd be happy to look at any one of those and even adjust the preferences. If you have some feedback on any of the preferences that are represented here, I'll tell you that we've mostly depended on artificial intelligence to help us understand the preferences of Tatmadaw. And as we go into this project, we are going to interact with people human beings that are very knowledgeable about this this subject, and they will help us refine all of the information that you see here. So, whatever we show you today, we want you to take with a grain of salt, because we have created it fairly quickly, without a lot of human input. And basically what we're demonstrating to you is a process. And we are basically trying to promote that process. And our intention is to make this process more realistic as we get closer to the real stakeholders. So, Dr. Ahmed, is there any particular issue you'd like to zero in and look at more closely?
Thank you. So I'd be more interested in the, let's say, the first issue, ceasefire agreement and security guarantees. So can you a little bit expand on this issue and how, let's say, Tatmadaw and other stakeholders, for example, United Nations and regional stakeholder ASEAN, so how they're going to interact here and understand. So far, I understand that the least preferred option is on the left side of the screen, status quos, and the most preferred option in the right. So how would they interact? Would you explain a little bit for our audience?
Okay, so these, of course, are abbreviations for a lot more detail that we would have in the negotiation. Of course, each one of these would be backed up by perhaps many pages of information that the parties would be familiar with. And they're not mutually exclusive. So even though we have ceasefire here on the left, that ceasefire, this is a ceasefire without some of these other things that would make the ceasefire more valuable, like, for example, the legal security agreements. So this is, the ceasefire plus guarantees. And if the Tatmadaw thinks, we really don't like those security guarantees, we don't think they're really that valuable. And so if we find out that, this option shouldn't be so high, we can move it down like that, and it becomes less important, and other things are more preferred. And then, I could, for example, I'll show you here. Let's suppose that we moved it down that much, and I just could look at this a little bit here and move it like that. Now I've got that one to be the third one instead of the second one. So it is when the Tatmadaw are gathered around and looking at this and looking at the documentation that supports this, they can say, are these in the right order or aren't they? And how are they, should they be compared to each other? We can move these bars up and down according to how much we prefer one option over the other.
I see. Thank you. Dr. Thiessen, so do you want to engage with others, those who are with us today in the stage? So I'd like to open the floor. Especially, I would like to invite Mr. Greg, David, and John. So if you have a particular question to Dr. Thiessen, can you just kindly come forward, and so that we understand the interface and the potential of this software. Greg, do you have any observations?
Hi, Kauser. I'm just learning how this is working, so I'm very interested to see. Of course, there's a lot of subtleties with regard to inputs that we're estimating, but I understand the process, but I don't have any comment right now. Thank you.
Thank you. David, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, I don't have any comment. I think that it would be useful to identify again the different preferences and the interrelationship with them. Maybe just have a discussion, and Kauser, you might be able to contribute more than anybody to that. So you've already indicated, the relationship between a ceasefire and security guarantees, but especially with your military background, how can you relate other preferences which might lead to, in combination with the ceasefire category, some kind of way of leveraging a ceasefire?
Absolutely. This is particularly of importance, the ceasefire first, because the peace building and other reconstruction work starts after the ceasefire. Let me request John, who has joined us in this session today. John, do you want to ask any question to Thiessen, Dr. Thiessen? Okay.
You're muted, John.
Okay. Okay. Let's wait for John to come back, and we can engage. Second question, Dr. Thiessen, can you also explain a bit about the last issue at hand, total cost? So give us more information. How do you want to incorporate this thing? Because we are talking about Marshall Plan, very similar to post-Second World War, activities in Europe. So how did you get into this, item, and what are the data that you need actually to have a very realistic calculation of the reconstruction?
Right. Okay. Well, let me just show you how that works a little bit. I'm just going to create a new package here to experiment with, and as I can move these flags here to different places. I can create a different package, and as when you're notice that when I choose different options, the cost is changing, right? And that's because every one of these options is associated with a cost. And we've got about, around 60 different options. If you total all the options up for all of the issues here, and every one of them has a cost associated with it. And we have spent some time with artificial intelligence, and we have gone, looked into what is involved with each one of those to determine a reasonable cost to associate with each one of those options.
Can I ask a question, Kauser, follow up on that? So that being so, where do the benefits of the investment of those costs, where is that in the picture, in the process? In other words, if you're dealing with humanitarian, maybe the best one would be power sharing and governance. So what is the value of empowered local governance of the local government seeking shared power through some kind of semi-autonomous local governance? So how do you measure the benefits of that kind of empowerment and assumption at a local level of those responsibilities to benefit the central power Tatmadaw and then, of course, the government that they control.
So you can see here, according to the analysis that we did, the Tatmadaw prefer the special economic zone option more than these other ones. And in fact, compared to all of the others, like all of the other options that we had come up with are actually worse than the status quo to the Tatmadaw. But that doesn't mean that we won't settle on that, because the Tatmadaw might overall prefer the whole package and be willing to compromise on some of these other things.
What does the economic zone concept mean? Is there some way you can explain that? Does that mean a centrally controlled economic zone? Is that the way they would see it?
You know, I'll have to admit that I have not become an expert on all of these options, and I would have to give that answer to you later.
Sure. Yep.
Dr. Thiessen, maybe the next question from my side is about getting your opinion. Something in negotiation, we often talk about win-win situation. For example, party A and B here, let's say Arakan Army and Tatmadaw, which is the name for the Myanmar military in the language. So in this process, do you have any scope to show this win-win situation for both these parties so that they can really effectively continue the negotiation? Because if one party perceives that they would be the loser if they choose this option, it's very likely that they won't continue dialoguing and taking part in the negotiation. How do you do that?
Well, of course, that is critical to the whole process. And so I should mention that if we're going too fast here for some of the audience who might be looking at this for the first time, we have shown some of this in more detail in other videos, and in particular that we did an analysis, you know, imagining that we created a Gaza Marshall Plan, and there is a good video created for that one, and I would suggest that, you know, you might want to go back right now if you're here for the first time and go and review that video before you see the rest of this one. But let me, I'm not meaning to evade your question, because I'm actually going to show that. And so here, from the Tatmadaw's point of view, each one of these issues has an importance attached to it. So here's a number called 29, here's 51, 44. So the least important issues are here: constitutional reform at 7, international oversight and support at 7. And so each one of these issues has an importance, and that importance is distributed among the various options that you saw when I opened up the satisfaction graph. And when we create a certain package here, like this package is, everything is on the right-hand side. So this is the most preferred option to the Tatmadaw, and it's worth the most. It's worth 205 points. And the least preferred here is the status quo. I had it set at 0 before, but we made some changes, and I can actually fix that. Just shift that to the 0 rating, and now it's back at 0. So basically, our reference point is 0 at the status quo. Anything better than 0 is something that's better than what we have right now. So if all of the parties agree on a package that's better than the status quo, we've got a win-win solution. And that's what you were asking for, Kaiser.
Right. Right.
In fact, we're going to do better than that. We're going to try to get something that's beyond win-win and not leave any value on the table. So let's proceed. And in the Smartsettle process, we invite the parties to start with an optimistic proposal. So we're going to, and all of the parties are expecting each other to put their most optimistic proposals on the table to get started. And in another negotiation, they might say, well, why don't you be more realistic? Well, we know that that's coming as when we ask for suggestions. So here we have a proposal from each one of the parties, and we can look at all of them, and it looks, the screen is all full. Now, the least preferred option of all of these comes from the National Unity Government, and it's worth 27 points. You'll see that it's worth less than our walkaway. They're all better than the status quo, but we want to do quite a bit better than the status quo, and 27 is not good enough. We want to get at least 53 points. I'm saying we being the top mandat. So even 97 here from the Ringa, it's not even as good as our target. So I'm not going to accept that one right now. Instead, I'm going to ask Smartsettle to generate a suggestion. So it may come up with more than one suggestion. So we've got a range of packages here, and what I'm expecting is for Smartsettle to generate a suggestion, and for those suggestions to appear among the proposals that we already have here on the table.
So, Dr. Thiessen, as your system loads, my quick question here, these packages are made earlier in the system with the data that we have provided you, and in real time, you will receive more data from real stakeholders, external agencies, etc., and which is the backbone of your packages. Am I right?
Yes, the data we have right now, we have put it together in a big hurry, and so we don't want you to put a lot of stock in this data, so we're not trying to illustrate a solution to the conflict right now. We're only showing you a process, and it's going to take a much longer period to get the data in from the actual stakeholders, and that will actually inform this process.
Thank you. And again, I'm just continuing the discussion as your system loads up. These packages are really important because from our research point of view about this conflict resolution, and these packages are, which will make sense to the stakeholders, i.e. Arakan Army, civil society of Myanmar, Rohingyas, Tatmadaw, and therefore, I think when we actually build those packages, it must be realistic, and it comes from the available data, what we have, open source, and this is how these packages possibly will be created and close to reality, so that stakeholders do see value in it. But Dr. Thiessen, let's say we whatever we have knowledge about those packages, we tell you, and your system prepares those, but we can modify elements of these packages as we go, as we receive more real-time data from the stakeholders. Am I right?
Yes, it will be an iterative process, and we will be constantly making changes and improving what we have and making it more realistic with every iteration.
And another maybe pertinent question here. So what is the way that you envision this iteration would take place? Do you want representative of the stakeholders, for example, us and others, to be involved, or your system, we just give you data in various formats and your system automatically synthesize from there? How does it actually work?
Well, I'm not sure exactly how to answer your question, but it's probably a combination of both of those things that you mentioned.
Thank you. Thank you. The reason I'm saying because once we see the details of the packages that it is generating, I will have a question for our project specifically, and would like to get your comments. How do you see we use it in our project? But again, I think Mr. John is back with us. He has connected from his phone. John, if you can hear us, you can have your questions now. We are interacting with Dr. Thiessen.
Yes, thank you. I think for your question just now about the process, what we would be doing if we were representing the Tatmadaw and the representatives representing each of the other parties were each in our separate rooms or in our separate offices in secret. We would each be proposing those proposals that are in the upper right corner of the screen that are on the table, as Ernest Thiessen said. And then each time that those proposals were made by each of us parties, then somebody could ask the system, the Infinity system, to make suggestions. And then those suggestions would show up, as they will when this thing gets finished generating them. And then we each would look at those and make decisions that Ernest Thiessen will show us shortly that would be made. Here it comes. And then we would look at that and figure out what we wanted to accept, if anything, and go on from there. So Ernest Thiessen should pick up his presentation from here now that the system has loaded. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to accept this package number 13. It's worth 127 points. I would of course look at it in detail before I would do that, but I'm just believing that my preferences are well represented. And when something comes up here and it says 127 points, which is better than my target, I'm going to say I like this package. I like it quite a bit, actually. So, and I'm not ready to accept package 14. It's better than my walk away and even better than my target, but I'm just going to leave that one for the moment, and instead I'm going to propose my concession in so I cut you off, John. You're muted.
I thought you were going to go ahead and just run the simulation for us.
Yeah. Right. And so whenever you see this, please wait dialogue here. This is the time to come up with any questions, because sometimes it takes a little bit of time to do its work.
Dr. Thiessen, another question that I was thinking right now is, what are the minimum threshold level, or let's say baseline of calculation of the indicators, which is in the lower right corner, titled private, so 158, 99, 53. How did you arrive into those threshold of calculation? How it has been done?
Well, I should say that these are all arbitrary, and the optimistic, you might have noticed that we chose the very best package that was on the table, that was possible here. And the status quo is something that's equivalent to what we have right now if we just did nothing. And then these other packages have to be somewhere in between the optimistic and the status quo. And so if the Tatmadaw agreed to anything better than the status quo, well, obviously it would be better than the status quo. But there are huge benefits to coming to a peace agreement here. And if we just agreed to something that was barely better than the status quo, most of those benefits might go to the other parties. So in order for it to be fair, we have to agree to, we have to target something better than the status quo. So that's where this target comes from. We think that this would be our share of the benefits of coming to a peace agreement as the Tatmadaw.
So, Dr. Thiessen, again, sorry, I'm going back to the same question. So what does this number denote? 99, 158. Does it have any correlation to your backend data, something, or it's just an arbitrary number?
No, one unit is worth $100 million.
Oh, I see. So it is in terms of money, right?
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah. So if you want to convert those into a monetary figure, just think of one unit being 100 million. And you can see that from the cost issue here. This actually, the reason that this cost issue is not worth the total amount is because the Tatmadaw will not pay the total cost. So they only pay we're assuming that they've all agreed to pay a certain percentage. I'm not sure what that percentage is right now, but
Ernest, David here, I come back again. So to the benefits question. So those are essentially savings, the 100 million. So what about benefits? In other words, the things that obviously come later and over an indefinite period of time. I don't know how far ahead you measure it, but it is a problem that's always in government dealing with treasury boards they're only interested in 3 or 5 years, yet the savings over a generation, 25 years or 20 years, are phenomenal. And so how does that play into it? Because it seems to me the greatest leverage to cope with the people that want to preserve optimal power and control, and to such an extent that it will not be sustainable, has to be they have to be budged out of that position from the value of the benefits, which have to be they have to be convinced are genuine, real, and doable.
So our interaction with the stakeholders will determine, in more accurately what their real preferences are. Right now, we are trying to deduce those preferences from what we can gather, what we know from our own research, and what we can gather from the internet. But we will be interacting more closely with representatives of the real stakeholder groups and be in dialogue with them about the various options, and to say, you know, how much would you value this option over another option? And that there are clearly huge benefits to coming to peace in the Myanmar region. And if we can distribute those fairly among all of the stakeholder groups, then they should be willing to reach a peace agreement.
So how do you put that huge benefits on the table? I mean, how do you give that quantification? How do you?
Has raised his hand. John, do you want to go ahead with the answer?
You're muted, John.
Yes. Yes, thank you. I think the key is in what Ernest Thiessen just said, which is that each party will say how they feel about a given outcome. So they're the ones who make the evaluation. To David Newman's point, that if you have the delegation of a party dominated by the treasury person who won't look at anything that goes beyond 5 years, then that party is going to undervalue everything because they're not going to see those benefits that David sees so clearly. The composition of the delegation, or the control of the delegation for each party, is important to that delegation so that they get a true understanding of what they're signing up for when they come to an agreement. And it's clear that the outcome, if they've undervalued something, they're in reality, in real life, they're going to get benefits that they go beyond what they think they signed up for. But the difficulty, the problem with having, let's say, that delegation dominated by somebody with a very short time horizon for benefits, like Ernest Thiessen said, maybe 5 years, is that they're going to undervalue things that they should not be undervaluing. So they're going to be hurting themselves. This is an example of the proper representation of preferences being absolutely crucial to getting what you want as each party. So this is the classic problem of the genie. You rub the lamp and out comes the genie, you get 3 wishes. And if you don't tell the genie exactly what you want, you're going to get something that corresponds to what you told the genie, but it doesn't correspond to what you really wanted. Excellent example. Thank you.
Right, and I should mention that, you know, the benefits here are represented by these importances on the various issues, all of these numbers, and this number here next to the optimistic, this 208, this is basically the maximum benefits that could be achieved in this negotiation for the top mandat. And these are really present value in economic speak. These would be present value numbers. So,
thank you. I just have received a question from, and then rather a comment from Greg, and before he left, he said that, and I'm quoting him, the process must include the ethnic armed organization representatives in order to collaborate. They have their own ideas about their economics. It is very ephemeral, and we can get a lot of their historical preferences from previous negotiations. I think this is, again, we are talking about, it goes back to my own question, that how do you really show that, that this information are coming from real stakeholders? But again, we understand that it will be taken into consideration. Dr. Thiessen, I'm coming back to, again, building up on David's comments. So we are, I mean, in your process, how do you really show the costs of, let's say, status quo? So now there is a status quo, Rohingyas 1.3 million in Bangladesh, and there's the whole war going on. So how do you show these things in the process that if we maintain status quo, then these stakeholders, i.e. Bangladesh, ethnic term organization, ethnic groups, it is costing this much, and especially United Nations and their subsidiary organs like World Food Program, then your UNICEF, then High Commission, etc., etc. So is there any way we can project these costs? And if you recall, I did send you a study done in Bangladesh a couple of years ago by a think tank, and they did project that in the next 10 years, hosting 1.234 million Rohingyas would cost Bangladesh, this much. So is there any way we can also build that data into this process?
Yeah, that information is very important, and we need to cross-check what we're doing with that information to see that what we're representing here as the benefits actually corresponds to what's been calculated by others, and so all of that information will be used to fine-tune this information as we go forward.
Thank you. And since the system is still working, Thyssen, another maybe a quick question here is, how do you see in our project, current ongoing project, you plan to train facilitators? Because what I understand is that we need to train number of facilitators, those who will actually work in our workshops that we plan for the second phase. What is your plan on that?
Yeah, so skillful facilitators are important as an interface between the Smartsettle Infinity platform as you see it and the stakeholders. So it would be good if we had facilitators that were working with each one of the stakeholder groups, and those facilitators should understand how the Smartsettle process works and work closely with the stakeholders to elicit their preferences in a way that we can represent them accurately within the Smartsettle interface. And if we represent those preferences accurately, then when Infinity generates suggestions, then those suggestions will have a rating, and they will make sense to those stakeholders.
Understood. And do you see that those facilitators can be trained virtually? I mean, from Smartsettle group, can they be trained like that?
Yeah, we can do much of it virtually.
Excellent. David, any questions, comments?
Again, in terms of the data about benefits, I'm thinking the kind of data that would show, for example, the benefits of access to resources, right? The benefits of people actually having jobs or being entrepreneurs, and therefore generating income and therefore taxes, right? The benefits of really sharing in collaborative ways amongst people in the area that had no had no relationship at all, and rather than be collaborative, were deniers or competitors. And you think of the power potentially of displaced people, the Rohingya, being repatriated, and all of those costs paid, by international support and Bangladesh sacrifice, are therefore converted into the creation of human capital, with every single educated or skill developed Rohingya individual. And I mean, so is that kind of data? I mean, is that going to be available? There must be research done by some people for those, but it seems to me that that kind of data is incredibly important and might be the difference maker in effectually persuading the offenders of the current power and control and governance structure being perpetuated rather than modified or over time transitioned into a sharing of power in a far more significant way. So is that data available? Because I think it has to be part of it.
Kaiser?
That may be the kind of thing that Greg has access to.
John, yes. John would like to say, yeah. John, go ahead. Yeah.
Yes. As I visualize this, each party would make its own assessment of the costs and benefits, and then make their preferences on the basis of their understanding of the costs and benefits. So each party will have its own view, and they may be quite different. I think that's the essential thing. Is the better informed people who represent each of the parties, the more it will, what they come up with will be their real preferences. Attracting the people who actually have real information is key. Thank you.
Exactly. I think this is something we are learning now through this session, that the facilitators, they have to be also trained on the conflict, especially these stakeholders they are going to assist with. And they must be fed with enough data so that they can effectively help stakeholders in this negotiation process. So two stakeholders, according to my observation, Tatmadaw and Arakan Army. But Arakan Army, I have great hope because they have a political wing, UCL. So they might be interested to take part if we try, but it's very unlikely Tatmadaw will be interested in taking part in any kind of dialogue with anyone with regards to peace at this point in time. But nonetheless, we'll see, because we are not talking about real-time situation at all. We are talking about simulation. Dr. Thiessen, we are approaching 1 hour mark, so we are going to wrap up soon. But as your system works, my last question to you is that, sorry, for our project, Peace in Myanmar, in part 2, when we are going to run the workshops, do you think the facilitators can can be connected with the groups that we are going to create in the workshops, and they can cooperate virtually, or do you think that facilitators should be available with the stakeholders in person?
Okay, let me just move this ahead here a little bit. Um, it's in session 2 here. It's taking longer than when I simulated it the first time, and not sure. It's you know, even slight changes makes a big difference. So I think I'm going to put my target package anonymously on the table. And let's see, I think this might go more quickly here. And then we're going to accept that package. And end session 3. Okay. Oh, we've got a deal. Look at that. Okay, let's see what it is. All 6 stakeholder groups have agreed to this package. And while we're looking at it, I'm going to ask for an improvement to see if there's any value left on the table. And so now, while we're waiting for that improvement, your question again was, will these facilitators be able to help virtually? Is that what your question is?
Exactly. So facilitators helping the stakeholders virtually.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think we can do a lot over the internet.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, but so this last step might take a few minutes again, and if we run out of time, then I guess we can always report this to the. Oh, let me see. No improvement could be found, so that means in my previous simulation, we were actually able to generate, there was some value left on the table, but there's not always. When you have numerous stakeholders, like as many as 6, it's very rare that you actually see, you know, that there is still value on the table once you have come to an agreement, because it's very difficult to find any agreement at all. But
Dr. Thiessen, I'm very sorry to intervene. Can you just explain how the software has come to this point with the best package? What we see is 17 all baseline agreement. How did it happen? And we saw you have clicked numerous times. So just explain for our audience, how did it happen?
okay, so I'm going to go back to my PowerPoint, and we're going to see it over there. So I'm going to explain it here in terms of 2 parties. Assume we have the Tatmadaw here and the Renga, and Renga wants to be up here as high as possible, and the Tatmadaw wants to be over here. But of course, if we can somehow get them in this area, they're both going to be satisfied. And the way the Smartsettle process works is, as you've seen, we, each of the parties in their own interface identify the status quo. And so we showed you how that happened for the Tatmadaw, and that happens for all of the other parties as well. And in satisfaction space, there is a place on the top right that they're looking to find a solution that satisfies everybody. And basically, the reason they can't get there right now is because they're stuck at a place that Nash called the Nash equilibrium. It was coined after Nash, John Nash. And they don't have enough incentive by themselves, but we can provide them with this Smartsettle process with a method to escape from that dangerous place that they are at the Nash equilibrium. And basically, the area that we have is bounded by the efficiency frontier. So any place in here is better than the status quo. And that we call that the zone of possible agreement. And in practice, they want to get better than target. So you notice that in the interface, we had one package called a target. Every one of the other parties also had a target package, and the robot was trying to get better than the target for all of them, and that is a smaller area here. And so once they have that defined, then they start with the negotiation. They're trying to get into this zone of likely agreement, which is better than their target. And so when we exchanged optimistic proposals, those optimistic proposals were outside of that area. None of the parties was accepting anybody else's optimistic because they weren't good enough. They were outside. But then we asked Smartsettle to generate suggestions, and some of those suggestions fall inside this zone of likely agreement. And if all of the parties accept the same package, then we have a deal. That's called the baseline. And sometimes there is still some room left here. We ask for an improvement to see if Smartsettle can generate something better for all of them. And that final one is called we call it the fair and efficient solution. So this is what the neutral site, the Smartsettle neutral site knows. None of the parties is privy to this, not the mediators or the facilitators, only the neutral site, the Smartsettle neutral site. I don't know if that helps at all to answer your question.
Yes, I think it fairly explains how this process works at the backdrop. Thank you.
So if we have more than two parties, then that efficiency frontier is not just one line. If you have three parties like the Tatmadaw, Rohingya, and China, then that efficiency frontier becomes a surface. And if you have four parties, it's very difficult to show it in a graphical way here. But the computer has no difficulty conceptualizing all of that within itself. And but there is an efficiency frontier even for six parties, even though we can't represent it graphically like we can like for three parties. So that's the end. When we're done, we're going to fill in the blanks for that single negotiating framework, and it becomes our Myanmar Marshall Plan, and we've been rewarded for waging peace. That's the end.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Thiessen. If you kindly close the window, that would be great. Thank you. So yeah, I mean, I'm very excited, frankly speaking, because I think I need training ASAP. David, do you have any questions? John, do you have any comments, observations before we close?
Yeah, my only comment is that we must be reminded that just going through the process at a tier 2 or tier 3, TAC 2, TAC 3 level is valuable to wrap your heads around the data and then to really give values to issues, values that otherwise you wouldn't reflect upon. So I think the best you can expect from the process is that the track one folks can be the beneficiaries of this experience, and there's something to sell then, right? And then there's an accountability, right? If you don't accept what can be really publicly disclosed, that we were able to come to it and the others can't. So I think that can be an educational tool in a good way for every one of the stakeholders for the groups they represent.
Thank you. John, yeah, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Each time this is simulated, it creates the opportunity for greater attraction for the next higher level of expertise, from each party. So it's very important to get somewhere, so that at least one of the parties will throw some talent at this and improve it, and begin to make the whole thing look more realistic. And to an earlier question about how to attract a party, why a party would want to be in this. One of the parties, I think David Newman named as important to include, and why would they participate? In other simulations, what we've seen is that if a party is left out, then they're going to get whatever result comes up in the simulation that others participated in, and if that simulation's results get implemented in real life, they may look at that with regret and say, "You mean we could have been in this and we blew it? We didn't get in it, and as a result, we're getting stuck because they all agreed." So what we've usually seen is that if people get the idea that that's what's going to happen, then all of a sudden, even though they might not feel good about it, they want to be in there, because otherwise, as Ernest Thiessen always says, they will have no influence on the results. Thank you.
I think it's a fair point, John, and I totally get it now that you don't want to be left out of the negotiation, because then you lose your future, right? I mean, if I understand that much. So the audience, we are going to close this session today. And frankly speaking, I'm very fascinated with this interface. As soon as I learned Dr. Thiessen work a few years back. So we are hoping very much that we can test our proof of concept and the interface that you saw today in this project. And definitely we are going to upscale it in other conflicts. And Dr. Thiessen is possibly working on some of these. So Dr. Thiessen, before we say goodbye, do you have some final thoughts about the potential of this work in Myanmar and beyond?
Mm-hmm. Well, the potential is enormous, and it not only if we can show this working and producing some benefits in Myanmar, it has there are endless applications everywhere.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, dear audience. Thank you for being with us this evening. And we have just demonstrated a concept that we are going to test in Myanmar conflict, funded by Global Affairs Canada. Is called Sustainable Peace in Myanmar, Ending Decades-Long Armed Conflict. So please follow us, tune, and you will listen more webinars coming up in the future as well. And please send your comments and feedback if you would like to contribute towards the peace in Myanmar. Till then, goodbye, and we'll see you again.